this. And I have a few ultra basic slides. And we'll share those. And you guys let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, we can.
Wonderful. All right, cool. So I love journaling, but I think there's kind of a trap there, which is journaling can stay on the level of story. And so I'm writing, what I do today, what's happening. It's kind of like talk therapy with yourself. And you can kind of find yourself in these loops up here where it's like, well, it's the same things happening over and over. And, I kind of struggled with how effective if how effective is this? This helps me reflect on things. But the issues that I found in my life were I'm staying kind of up here on the level of mind and thinking. And that's helpful, but it's only part of the wisdom that we have. There's wisdom in the body, and then there's wisdom kind of going beyond to your kind of intuition, to your unconscious. And so last year, I started to really experiment with different journaling techniques from different authors um, that were more stream of consciousness focused and maybe had different prompts. And what I found, one quote, I posted a video about this yesterday by Dostoevsky, I found really interesting. He wrote this thing about everybody has things they're comfortable telling to the world, to their friends, then maybe to their therapist. And there are other things which a man or a person is afraid to even tell to themselves. And that to me is kind of the juicy spot. So journaling by hand gives us the opportunity to move, right? It's like dance or walking, whatever. There's a motion going on, right? So I'm writing on the page, and ideally that motion carries me to from thinking about something to okay, I'm just tapping into the emotions, the whatever is already there. I'm already holding this. My body's holding this. I might not be connected to it, and I'm kind of letting this flow out on the page. So this is kind of a very specific process. I set a timer, and I just do that. And the big surprises to me happen when I bump into these things that I'm, afraid or hesitant or avoidant to even tell myself. So in other words, it's a process of I can reflect on the day. I'm doing it over here. That's regular journaling. But I'm trying to reconnect mind and body and get to the places that I don't usually visit. There's other ways to do that, embodiment practices, dance, martial arts, sound, meditation. There's a lot of ways of getting there. Writing just happens to be one that's always accessible, and you can do it privately, and you kind of don't really need a lot. It's a very simple idea. But the big shift for me is like I want to move from the story I'm telling myself, which is interesting, and we want to investigate that and be reflective. But I want to move from that to the authentic experience. What do I really feel? And the reason is that when it's not being experienced, I think we can start to feel stuck in the sense that, and this is something I've wrestled all my life, there might be something specific we're trying to do. Like I'm trying to make a decision. I'm in New York. I'm like, I'm going to move somewhere. I feel like I don't really have clarity on what to do there. I might want to take a certain action, like make a change, start something, end something, do something in my relationships and my work. And I'm just not doing the thing. Right. And so I find myself kind of stuck and I don't really know why I'm like, is this just procrastination or is there some inner conflict, some inner process, something that's getting in the way that I am not fully conscious of? And there might be other, like stuck generally is like there are these moments in life when we're like, I know I need to make a change, but I'm not even sure what I'm trying to do. And so to me, these are all kind of signs of either inner conflict. There's one part that wants to do something, and there's maybe another part that's concerned or that holds some memory or some childhood experience or something else that's kind of creating a polarity. I'm trying to move here, but some part of me, some aspect of myself that's not being heard or seen is kind of going in the opposite direction. Like this doesn't feel safe, or like this is going to make us, too vulnerable. Like there's something here that I haven't explored, or there's a general disconnect from my intuition, my creative flow, my emotions. And so all of these are ways where I'm like, I could be shifting and moving so much more in life. I could be really make not just make changes, but kind of move with more ease. And I think about this when I'm getting rid of a lot of books. I'm like, I'm holding on to a lot of things. And like that, I'm holding on to a lot of tension, a lot of emotions, a lot of memories, a lot of beliefs. And so the most valuable thing to me is, what if mind body writing, what if through a writing practice, I could surface these things that I'm holding on to and then experience the emotion that's coming with it. Maybe there's some anger, maybe there's some shame, some grief, some, some fear. Maybe there's these things that I'm not letting myself experience. And then on the other side, I can unpack and it's like, oh, okay, can I find my way to harmony and to movement and to clarity? So the way I went about it, and this is still kind of the experimental phase, like there's still some work to be done here. But where I ended up, there's kind of different ways to approach this depending on what you're actually wrestling with. There's one way, which is you just create an open space on the page. This is things like morning pages, or the inner dialogue exercise that I shared on the Substack. So you just take the empty page and you're like, okay, what if I just brain dumped everything that's cluttering my mind up here? Um, I meditate, so there's a little bit less clutter on a day-to-day basis, but there's still some. But if, at some point in life, it might be very useful to just get a picture. And what happens with writing versus thinking, I could do all of these things by myself just thinking about it. But with writing, you pin the word down on the page, right? And it kind of crystallizes, and then you can investigate it. Versus, well, if I'm thinking about this, the mind, if it's an uncomfortable thing, um, or an emotional thing, I'm avoiding this, the mind can quickly create a diversion. Like for John Sarno, the doctor, that was like, well, people experience back pain or other chronic pain to distract from an emotion they don't want to feel. And like that, the mind can like move you back to some story. And then you're not going, you can't really go deep if your mind kind of throws diversions at you. So I think it's very helpful to have that practice of, okay, let's put this on the page and then go deeper and follow, what does this feel, what else is going on here, what am I avoiding, what are the things I'm not allowing myself to say specifically, what are the things where I'm judging myself, what are the things that, oh my God, if anybody knew that I thought this, wanted this, said this, had done this, I don't even want myself want to know. Like those are kind of the things that where we don't forgive ourselves or we kind of disown a part of ourselves, that I think unconsciously hang around. And it's very useful to go there and at least have it for yourself on the page. And then you can burn the page after, right? Like none of this needs to ever be shared, after which you can make a decision on what to do with it. So one way is to have this open space and be like, okay, what if I just let this unfold on the page and then picked up the patterns on the pieces? Um, Another way is if you have something specific, John Sarno would say, make a list of everything that's stressing you, everything that's painful. This could be from your past, right? Childhood, teenage years, family, whatever went on. This could be your current, money, job, relationships, anything that's stressing you, or it could be yourself, right? Any characteristics where I'm like, I cannot believe I'm still doing this. And well, I am. So what if I spend 15 minutes writing just about that? And so, you can spend 15 minutes about money, or you can spend 15 minutes about, this thing with the job is not going well, or like this thing with my mom, she keeps doing this, whatever. You just go deep into something in your life that's stressing you and that's always hanging around in the background. And just shifting it from the unconscious background process to, okay, I'm putting it on the page, I think is already a valuable step, and leads to kind of experiencing the emotions that are associated with that. And the last one would be to pick a prompt. I'll share a few. There's basically, I mean, there's infinite prompts, right? You can, you'll just pick something that's interesting and resonant that creates some kind of emotional charge, either like, oh, I really want to talk about this, or oh my God, I really don't want to. Like, this is absolutely not the thing I want to deal with. So I'll share a few, but those I'll probably rotate every week because the prompts, sometimes they're alive for you and sometimes they're not. depending on where you are. And the pointers that I'm thinking about, and there's a lot more to this, and especially kind of what you do after the experience, you want to integrate and work with what you're learning. But as you're writing, first of all, you're like, okay, I'm gonna spend my time on this topic, and you just keep going. We'll do 15 minutes, and you just keep going, see whatever comes up, and not so much like I want to write about this. I'm thinking, I'm planning an essay, just stream of consciousness, and as much as you can go from should and I think and da da da, and I'm processing it up here and analyzing and observing to this makes me feel, really angry, like shit. I don't feel anything. Just like stick with the bodily experience and then probe for the things where as kind of uncomfortable. I don't like that. I wish it was different. And follow that trail of what's being avoided. Right. One of the metaphors I like is Dante's Divine Comedy. And it's pretty much, a guy in his middle age, he's stuck in the wood and he's confused. He wants to go to, to the light, to God. It's like, it's a Christian story, but he can't. He literally just stuck. It's dark. He doesn't know what to do. And then he needs both a guide and he needs to go a different way. And it goes all the way down into hell through all the circles, basically through an exploration, an investigation, and gaining greater awareness of everything he and all humans are kind of capable of, all the bad shit we can do. And every encounter leads to a little bit more wisdom, until he gets to the center, which is a frozen lake, right? And like Dante put Dante the poet put Satan in there, so like it's the ultimate betrayal of love. And it's just kind of an interesting image, like it's a frozen lake, total, the energy is completely dead, no movement, and kind of stewing in resentment. And so if you carry that kind of block of ice through life, but that kind of thing, it's always going to be there. So what if you could on the page go down and surface that, and then the next job would be like, okay, how do I meet this with some warmth, with some forgiveness? How do I process this? How do I give this shape? Right. So this is kind of the investigative process, and you get some emotional experience. Although, to be frank, in a group setting or with anyone around, and especially on the first try, my sense is the emotional experience, the emotional charge is much lower. The intense sessions that I have are like nobody can be around. No amount of censorship can happen. So I need to be by myself. And if you can do that, and if you then later can integrate it, then I think you can find yourself to a place where maybe you do it intensely for a month. Like there were months when I did it every day, different practices, and then later it can kind of go into maintenance mode because you've moved and shifted and met some of the things in your life that were waiting, that were waiting, not waiting, well, also waiting. And so, like I said, today for me, it's like you could, depending on where you are, you could pick kind of an open inquiry, like just do, like inner dialogue is literally you just write voice one, voice two in your native tongue. This was a big one for me. Or I mean, I do it in English, but it's more intimate and honest if you do it in the language in which you were brought up in. And you literally just step from I'm thinking, I, Frederick, think this to, well, there's a lot of parts of me or aspects of me, and they have different opinions. And so, what if I gave them voice? What if I created a stage for my inner world, and they could just kind of discuss whatever is going on, and that tends to lead to a surprise because I think as human beings, we're not quite aware of how much richness there is on the inside, how much fractal levels there are. So you could pick an open practice, kind of declutter, to a dialogue. You could pick one of the things that stress you about your past, currently, about yourself, and just be like, okay, I'll write 50 minutes just about that subject. And then, follow wherever it goes. Let yourself be surprised, right? There's any number of things could come up. So we want to start with a little bit of an agenda, but also be open to surprise. And I picked a few prompts, and I picked a few because, it for a group experience, it's more interesting, and if everybody does the same thing. But I think in this case, it's not so helpful because, I have no idea where you're coming from, what's alive for you. So some of the things that I used were like, everything would change in my life if I could forgive this person, which, by the way, it's like there's forgiveness of others and then there's forgiveness of self. And both of those are interesting. Um, Money as a topic has been alive for me. I don't know if it is for you, but it's like, well, if money was a person and it sat down with me or wrote me a letter and it, you know, wanted to tell me a few things about how I'm acting with it in my life, like, okay, that was an interesting session. Um, One I've done recently was if I truly and deeply love myself, all aspects of myself, you know, would I do this? Would I let myself be subjected to this? Would I hold myself back from doing this other thing? Would I carry this? Would my life look like this? Like what comes up when I investigate from the position of if I truly and deeply love myself, what are all the things in my life that are, not aligned with that? Um, a pretty basic one is you kind of, I tend to think we already know all the answers to all the big questions we have. So, what important inner wisdom, like what do I actually know that I'm just not doing? Like, what, and when I dig into that, why is that? What's coming up? Finally, like, if I had the time, skill, and courage, I would tell this story or tell this thing to this person. Where am I holding myself back in communication? Where am I choking off my own words? And so my invitation would be like, if one of these resonates, you'll write it down on the page. And otherwise, do an open inquiry, do, like I said, anything goes, or pick an inquiry into something that's stressing you. Or the invitation is also like, if none of these things kind of rings true and you have something else that's kind of on your mind, it's like, do that. Try to go deep, but also like we're already doing a lot of work. So if there's something else that's alive for you in terms of, oh, I'd really love to write about this right now, it's like, go there. Hold this entire practice lightly. It's like it's useful. I think it works. I think there's a lot to do here, but also like whatever wherever your intuition is pulling you. I think the biggest thing about this whole practice is like, how much can I develop my own capacity to be guided by proper inner wisdom? Like how much can I connect to that? And so every time I do this practice, I'm like, oh, I feel a little bit more connected to that inner compass. um so we'll do 15 minutes of that, but I'm going to stop the recording for that.
Henrik,
Yes,
you allude
questions.
to voice one, voice two. What did you mean by
Yes.
that?
So this is a technique I picked up from a screenwriter, and David Milch. I shared it on the Substack at some point. The basically what he said was when the screenwriters were out of work, he's like, go down, sit down and do the work. Just do it in this creative exploration, and just the way he would write dialogue for a TV show. Character one says, I think we should do this. And character two says, it's too dangerous. And character three says, actually, there's something else going on. And character four says, guys, we should go into the kitchen and make a meal. Like you allow, you're basically just writing down voice one. What would voice one want to say? And in every session, that might be a different voice. Now, I don't know who that voice is. For me, sometimes it's the same inner aspect showing up. Sometimes it's a childish aspect. Sometimes it's a very wise aspect. Sometimes it's a part that's just like, I don't want to do anything. I'm just very tired. You know, giving, allowing space for your inner voices. And the funniest, I don't know if this will happen to you, but the funniest thing happens, which is if I write voice one, something comes up. And then I say voice two, and something else starts speaking, and they can have a conversation, and you become a witness to your own writing. You become a witness to different aspects of your personality. Where that goes, I don't know. Sometimes out of that came poetry, sometimes ideas, and sometimes it was just, wow, I'm feeling a lot of inner disharmony. And so that's why I call it more of an open inquiry. It's like, I I don't know. It's kind of creating a space for, if you do any kind of parts work, IFS or something like that, it's kind of that, but you do it by yourself. All right. Any other questions before we jump into this? Okay, so let me stop the recording.